This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. Ira Winderman, how are you doing, my man?
I am doing good here, Big O, and sort of, to me, this is swing day when it comes to the Heat playoff series. If they put their foot down like the Sixers did in Toronto, make their statement, they can move on comfortably. But Big O, let's be honest. If the Heat don't win tonight, and all of a sudden it's, can the series be even at 2-2 going back to FTX Arena 7 p.m. on Tuesday? The plot thickens. When you are facing a team that is romping through its half of the bracket and you're sort of delayed, you know what, Big O? We have seen this so far with other series. The more games you play, the better a chance, the worse a chance, I guess I could say, for injury. Right. So for the Heat, they need to take care of business. This, to me, will show something of their, I don't want to say championship medal, but at least playoff medal tonight.
Well, listen, we're looking at Milwaukee with a major problem. Booker in Phoenix.
Sure.
And last night, even Jalen Brunson, he takes that dirty shot from Royce O'Neal, and he's lying on the floor for a little bit. The good thing is we went to the locker room, came back, and the kid was fine and was marvelous again yesterday, 31 points. Although he didn't hit a three-pointer. He went 0 for 5 from three-point range. It's amazing. But Brunson has really turned into a really nice player overall. And obviously Dallas has shocked the Jazz, now leading 2-1 without Luka. But it's true. The risk is there, and the injuries just change the complexion of so much. That's why we sit here and still wonder about, Bam and Goran 2 years ago in the bubble, because we're thinking it could have been a whole different ball game right there at that point. So, by the way, what do you think about Milwaukee's situation now without their best shooter?
It's interesting. I think Chicago's still beatable because, remember, the Bulls are shorthanded also. They don't have Lonzo Ball. So I think you can survive this. If Giannis Antetokounmpo and Drew Holiday are who we think they are and who they think they are, right, I think they win that series. But, Big O, something fascinating happened at the end of the regular season. Milwaukee decided that they would prefer to play Chicago in the first round, and they tanked. They might call it something else the last week of the season and fell to number 3. Well, all of a sudden, not only did that, get them Chicago in the first round, but that would put them on the road at Boston. Well, now you see how well Boston is playing and how good they're looking. And I just wonder if the Bucks got too cute for their own good. They literally forfeited home court advantage in the number 2, number 3 series against the Celtics because they were more concerned on getting their preferred matchup in the first round and avoiding the Nets. So I think it really might come back to bite Milwaukee when all of a sudden they're headed out to TD Garden for the first 2 of that series against the Celtics and for 4 of the 7 games in that series. Yeah,
and by the way, this is maybe the coming out party for Tatum and Brown, because these guys are so talented, so gifted. They look like a different pair right now. There's a different edge that I'm looking at and seeing with the Celtics, because you saw the way they came back in this last game and really took care of business. In the game before, they gave up a big lead, but we all said, well, they came back and they needed that last second desperation drive to win the game. But that's also a character play too at the same time, to be able to lose the lead and then come back and still win it. That showed you a lot of mental toughness. I am seeing a little different Brown and Tatum and the entire Celtic team. In fact, they now have the attitude of what's it called? The kid that the defensive kid. What's his name?
Marcus Smart.
Now they have a Marcus Smart attitude. And that's the part that I'm getting impressed about the Celtics.
You know what? I'd go even further. I think they picked up the attitude of Ime Udoka, their new coach. And they went through the growing pains the first half of the season, and he insisted on certain defensive precepts, and he insisted on a certain style, and you could see that pay off. And keep in mind also, they've been doing this without Robert Williams, who was really the defensive anchor for them the second half of the season. He will be back. Probably not in this series against the Nets because they don't need him, but almost assuredly in the next round, if it's Milwaukee or Chicago, most likely Milwaukee. So they will just get stronger. So I think Boston's in a really good spot now. I think Marcus Smart, sort of his aggression has sort of played off of the other players as a team leader on that team. And right now, if you're asking me most formidable competition in the East, and I guess you would say for the Heat in the East, even with what Philadelphia has done, I'm looking at Boston because they're playing a higher pedigree opponent, and they're playing and doing it in ways that you win playoff games in. So I think Boston almost right now, if I was doing my championship odds from the East, I would go with the Celtics. They have looked playoff ready.
Who's the deepest team in the East?
Well, again, I know where you're going on that, Big O, and I agree with the Heat's depth. But again, depth doesn't win playoff games.
That's what's going to help against those kind of teams is the depth, because it's going to get physical. And if it gets physical and you got fouls and you got to go to your bench, and then all of a sudden, who's got the better guys that you can go to the bench to? That's why I'm just saying, so if you're going to face
There's something to be said for that, but I still think it's about your stars. I think, you know what? I would look at every playoff game to this point. Maybe Memphis's comeback last night you could look at, but it's been about the leading men. We're talking about Jimmy Butler. We're talking about Jason Tatum. When Memphis won, we're talking about Ja Morant. You're talking about the leading men. They damn well better stay out of foul trouble. And you know what? They're going to need more of what Jimmy gave them, because the Heat don't have that 1B kind of wing player. Yes, Kyle Lowry is a very nice facilitator, but you're talking Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Either one can do it for you. What we are seeing now, not only with Joel Embiid, but Tyrese Maxey is at another level right now in his continued coming out party in the Eastern Conference. So as much as you say the Heat's depth helps, I agree, but I still think you take Jimmy Butler and you don't have him at a level like he was the other day, it's a little bit harder for the Miami Heat. They're going to have to play, as Eric Spoelstra would say, in the mud more often.
No concerns with Bam and Tyler, right? I mean,
you do what you take. What it takes to win the game. And if someone has it going, this whole thought, why the hell would you take the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hands on his 45-point night? Why the hell would you take the ball out of Duncan Robinson's hands on his 8 3-pointer night? This is what smart teams do. Smart teams don't let the ego get in the way and I'm getting lost in the playoffs so no one will notice. Smart teams say, these are 28 different mini seasons, almost the maximum 28 games you could play in the playoffs, and you're trying to come up with 16 positive results. So no matter what Bam has done or not done, Tyler has done or not done, the Heat now have 2 of those 16 needed results for a championship. You know what? They'll have their games. There'll be a Bam game, I guarantee it. There'll be a Tyler Hero game, I guarantee it. Why? Because we've seen it too often in the regular season to have doubts about that. Their time will come as well, Big O.
I'm with you there. And of course, we're at Acura Pembroke Pines. Come on out, baby. We got a great selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles, folks. So come on out and you can get a great deal. Tell them the Big O sent you at 15601 Pines Boulevard, just off of I-75 in Pines. All right. I'm not saying it's there. We're at that point. And listen, Anthony made a great point yesterday that the Durantula has been playing a lot of minutes down the stretch, 40-plus minutes. But Ira, I started to see a guy that's starting to look a little old, a little slower, or is it that he's worn out from carrying the damn team because Kyrie doesn't play half the season and James Harden was a lazy bastard? So which one is it? Am I seeing a worn-out Kevin Durant, or am I seeing a Kevin Durant that father time is starting to creep up a little bit?
You know what, Big O? Because I prefer to go with the positivity during these Acura Pembroke Pines reports, I'm going to go with a door number 3. I just think the Celtics defense is freaking great. Just like he have done that against Durant at times. So I think he just ran into the wrong matchup at the wrong time. Yes, he has logged the big minutes. Yes, it's so much isolation ball. That's what the Nets do. They give the ball to Durant, they give the ball to Kyrie, and they get the hell out of the way. But Boston's defense is so good and so complex and so on a string. I think that's the problem for Kevin Durant, because it's one guy coming at him, then another, then additional length, and they're banging him and they're bumping him. Then Turner showed during one of his times trying to get the ball the other day, it was like bumper cars. He was like the guy at the top of the pinball machine, just bouncing like crazy all over the place there, because they're saying we have the fouls to give him. We can play physical. I credit Boston's defense more than anything. I think what Boston has done with their turnaround purely has been on defense. They have really good defenders out there in Smart and Horford right now, and some of the ancillary players also. So I'm going to give more credit to Boston. I think if the Nets would have gotten their crap right and not wound up in this series, I think Kevin Durant would be in a lot better place. So I'm going to say 1A is the reasoning for Durant's struggles is what Boston is doing. They are able to target him. That's a two-man team, to go to your point with talking about depth, where there's no number 3. There's Kyrie and there's KD, and almost
That's
a
true.
thought, you know what? Those guys get 70 points. We're fine. No one else is going to score. That's an oddly composed team. They needed the big 3. Remember, James Harden was supposed to give him the other 30, but his ego got in the way. They're missing that right now. Ben Simmons not back till game 4. Gosh, they could be down 0-3 by then anyway. So I think that's where it went south. They were a two-man team without depth. You can't be that.
No, I'm with you there. And as a two-man, and they're a complete ISO team too, which they don't
Yes.
really get everybody else involved like other teams can use some of their role players in all kinds of ways. All right, let's get back to the Heat and obviously getting ready for the game tonight. The play of Gabe Vincent. I mean, this is one where tonight you want to see, is it real or is it Memorex? Because what that kid has done in the first 2 games, what I love is, Ira, not only did we find out that these young kids can actually play and that the Heat have depth, but now these young kids are performing on the playoff stage, which is something that you worry about. Now tonight, role players, road games. That's kind of a kryptonite for
Sure.
role players. So for me, it's going to be really intriguing to see how Vincent, and maybe if they go to Caleb, how they handle the whole Trae Young situation.
Kryptonite for young, less mature players. But I like what Eric Spoelstra said the other day about Gabe. It feels like he's been here for 10 years. He was there for every second during the bubble, doing nothing but getting additional development time because he couldn't do anything else. He was with the Heat all last season. He did have some playoff minutes against Milwaukee, and then he emerged in his role. Same thing with Caleb. Remember, we spoke Big O at the start of the year. Usually your two-way players are young neophytes you're going to develop. Instead, they took a guy with 2 quality seasons with the Charlotte Hornets. They brought him in. He's mature. He's ready to go. That's the difference. I don't think that Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin will crumble under the lights in a situation there, playing in Atlanta and State Farm Arena, because they've been in these moments before. I think they'll be fine. I think that those 2 were up to a road moment. I don't look at any really Heat player that they're using in their 9-man rotation as saying, will the moment be too big for them? Almost all these guys. Tyler Hero, your 6th man, huge in the playoffs in 2020. Dwayne Dedman, your 7th man. He's been around. He's seen it all. Duncan Robinson, he was there in that 2020 run to the finals also. So it's not like you got guys who are like, oh my God, it's the playoffs. What do I do? If anything, some of the Hawks look that way at FTX Arena.
I'm with you there. All right, follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. Ira, what are you working on the Sun Sentinel so folks can check you out?
Posted a story this morning. I thought Eric Spoelstra was really candid and almost surprised he went back to this when he reflected on the Markieff Morris injury and Nikola Jokic only getting a 1-game suspension and Markieff missing 58. And he said, look, this is not a case where I'm trying to screw the guy, move him out of the rotation. He missed so much time. It's just hard to play catch up. And he actually reflected back because everyone's talking about Nikola Jokic, number 1 for MVP, number 2 for his struggles in the playoff series, his team struggles, not his, against the Warriors. And I was surprised that Eric Spoelstra went there, but it just shows you that even 5 months later, the fact that Nikola Jokic got a single 1-game suspension, all forgotten, and got back at it for that brutal whiplash that he left Markieff with. And now Markieff simply has not been able to re-find himself after that missed time. Eric Spoelstra was asked that in reference to a question about Markieff and Victor Oladipo. You know what? Oh, we talked about this when they changed the rotation. Sometimes the train has to leave the station. It's not anything that Victor Oladipo did. It's not anything that Markieff Morris did. But at a certain point, Eric Spoelstra has to say, I've ridden with these guys for the first 82. I'm going to ride with them in the playoffs. So I wrote about that. I was surprised Eric Spoelstra brought it up. But basically, Eric Spoelstra is saying, don't blame me for not playing Markieff. Blame the big thug back there in Denver for what he did that I never fully got to explore Markieff. I thought that was interesting.
I'll blame Markieff. I'll blame Markieff.
For instigating.
He didn't make a basketball play, and
No,
that
he didn't.
and,
He
and,
did not,
and
but he didn't deserve that, Big O. He
well,
didn't deserve what happened.
You don't make the initial dirty play.
I agree.
Don't
Look,
don't
he's
put
not
don't
innocent. He's not innocent. He's
don't
complicit.
incite the other guy because you don't
Sure.
know how he's going to respond. And he's 300 pounds coming at your ass, dude.
Yes.
I mean, he's twice your size, and you're going to piss. It's like the dude, in the plane. Really, you're going to piss off Mike Tyson. Like, what are you doing, bro? And so it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Why would you? That's the part I don't like about this entire scenario. He does not take any responsibility. He put himself in that spot. If he would have made a basketball play, Jokic would not have retaliated with a dirty shot.
And I agree, but the end result seemed to be sort of slanted one direction, and mostly just Big O, just as a point of the
Man,
time
we all
he missed
screw
is
up,
what
dude.
cost
Just
him.
admit when you screw up, dude. I mean, it's fine. It's normal. We're human beings. Our emotions get the best of us
Sure.
at times. We say things that we don't mean, and it gets away from us. It happens to all of us.
I
But
agree.
the worst thing to do is to completely avoid it and not admit it, man, and say, hey, I know Jokic was dirty, but I started it and it was my fault. I put him in that position. And while I don't appreciate what he did, I initiated it. And he has never taken any responsibility for his actions. That's the part that to me, it's unacceptable. And you know what?
Fair point.
This is called karma. This is karma. This is karma biting him in the ass.
Karma was a bitch in this case. I agree.
Yeah. All right. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heaping, and of course, catch his exceptional work there at the South Florida Sun Sentinel. And subscribe, folks. Please subscribe. Support our local journalists like we do here on this show, and catch him 3 times a week here, of course, doing his thing. Ira, thank you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball, my friend.
Talk to you Monday in our Acura Pembroke Pines report. Thank you, Big O.
You got it. There's nothing wrong with screwing up. You know what? Let me wrap it up. That's Ira Winderman.